With all the books on Amazon, it's really important to make sure your book stands out from the crowd. Today, I'm going to talk about the all important hook for your book and how to make sure that you have included just enough to draw your reader in so they keep turning pages. So today we're going to talk about beginnings because the beginning of your story is indeed the most important part of your book. People will be looking at those first pages and deciding if they want to continue or not, whether it's readers if you self-publish or editors or agents if you're trying to get traditional publishing contract. So the beginning is essential, and there's quite a few resources and books written about this. And one that I use is called Hooked by Les Edgerton that I've read through, and it has a lot of great information for how to hook your readers, including, great first lines and why they work and what's great about them. So, come on. Okay. Hook the reader. That is what some people say your first page has to do. I'm trying not to be quite that dictatorial, dogmatic, whichever you want to say it is. But you do need to hook them within the first scene or what the sample will be that Amazon shares with people who are going to possibly buy your book. So how do you hook the reader? Well, you start your story at the last possible moment. This means that where can you start that will grab readers' attention, but they aren't going to be lost in what's happening? Because I definitely have started things where you're going, I don't know what's happening, and I don't know who these people are. I don't know why I should care. As a matter of fact, one early flash fiction story that I tried to submit, when I went, why doesn't it work? I think it's pretty good. That was the critique that I got back from a professional author who kindly, but not kindly, critiqued the story for me to say, I didn't know who your reader was, so I didn't really care that she was almost drowning in the river. So you have to have enough information so the reader is engaged and cares. You have to have enough description to set the stage so that your reader can visualize where things are taking place. One great way is action. That is a great way. You might have heard the terminology in media res, which means in the middle of the action, basically, is what they're talking about. No, you don't have to start with a car chase or whatever. And depending on your genre, something like that would not even be appropriate anyway. But something needs to be happening. You can't just be starting with your character staring off and thinking about stuff. That's not active. That's not going to hook your reader. And dialogue is great. Great dialogue is even better. Not that I'm a proponent of starting your first sentence should be a piece of dialogue, because people won't know who's talking. So that's one of the things Les Edgerton said in his book to avoid. There are, yes, some bestsellers that start with dialogue. Remember, there's an exception for every single writing rule you've ever heard, because writers are encouraged and challenged to break the rules, but you have to know how to successfully keep them and why they are there before you can effectively break them. And the last way that I want to mention about hooking the reader is show me the stakes. They want to know what's at stake if your character doesn't do or does do something. What's at stake for them in your story? So I'm going to talk more about that as I go on. So a hook might include a few things that I'm going to talk about now, and has to include some other things. So the first thing that I talked about was peril. And now peril is danger. And depending on your genre, it might be physical danger. If you're writing suspense, your hero or shero may be in danger of being killed right now, because that is common for that genre. But there's other types of peril. There is emotional peril. There is reputation, peril to your reputation. There's peril to just your the status quo. Wait, I like to keep things as they are, and you're shaking them up so that now I can't. They're in danger of being destroyed. Thank you so much, author. You're so cruel. So peril is always a good one, and the way I like to look at it is conflict should ignite some sort of peril on some sort of level. Like, I'm at risk of losing something your character should be worried about, should be thinking. Your hook might also include your inciting incident. Now, the inciting incident is that moment, and we'll talk more about this next week's lesson is about this because I'm going to talk about the first plot point next week, and your inciting incident leads up to it. But the inciting incident is the thing that makes your character have to decide, am I going to go on this journey to tackle my story problem, whatever it is, or am I not going to? And of course, they're going to, because you wouldn't have a story if they didn't, okay? So the inciting incident is that thing, whatever it is, that shakes up their normal world and says, no, you don't get to stay there. Here, you have to do this instead. So speaking of normal world, this is where one time can be one of my weaknesses. So the setup of your novel is everything that happens before plot point number 1. Okay, that's part of your setup. And your normal world has to be in the setup, meaning your reader needs to get an idea of what your Shiro and hero's life is like before this inciting incident happens. Now, you can show that after the inciting incident happens if you use the inciting incident for your hook, which I am in my novel that I'm writing for this challenge. So, but you have to show enough so that the reader, understands what's at risk, what they're losing if they don't take on the challenge and answer the story question, because you showed us their normal world and how it's either good or bad. Sometimes we're going, do this because it's going to make your life better. Other times we're like, oh no, this is going to be kind of hard. But you have to show the normal world. So that is where they live, what their life's like, da da da. It doesn't have to be a lot. You can show that just by a glimpse of, they're leaving the office and they have a conversation about, what kind of goes on. And then you see them at home with their family. Glimpse. It doesn't have to be pages and pages and thousands of words. And for me, description, less is more, but it does have to be enough so that your reader can be immersed in your setting, your normal world, so that they feel the pain when they get booted out of it at the first plot point. So high stakes. Even romance has high stakes. I might not get to be with my true love. Okay. So there's high stakes of some sort, and they need to be hinted at in the first scene. Your reader needs to have an idea of what your hero and Shiro are going to lose if they don't go on this journey, quest, whatever. That is the whole point of your story. So peril is pretty much in some form should be there. The inciting incident might work for your hook, and the stakes must be hinted at, even if it's just a minor stakes for that scene that kind of foreshadow what's to come. So they still need to be hinted at. So the hook is really important. First line's important, but I do want to encourage you right now, as I'm getting ready to finish this lesson, that my first scene is the most rewritten scene in my book, in every single novella I've written. The first few paragraphs, probably the most rewritten in every single flash fiction and short story that I've had published. So they take time. They might not come in the first draft. So even though you're thinking them and you want to get them right, don't let the thought that this isn't the perfect start keep you from starting. A lot of people are like, I don't know how to begin, so they never begin. Begin. And if you need to begin with a chapter of backstory before you can get going, fine. You can cut that and start with where the real story begins. So remember that this is a first draft that you're writing. And unless it gets written, you don't have anything to work with, words to work with to make the story better. So hook your reader, page 1, if you can, but by the end of chapter 1.